the build-up will begin when this mouth-watering grid of cars slots into place. We've had the qualifying race already today. That determines the grid for what we are about to have, and Daniele Perfetti, the man who won that, therefore starts on pole position. He was a late entry. He was having a look at the entry list, noticed that his brother and his dad were doing it and thought, well, might as well make it a family affair. And having successfully got himself into the race, he was able to come through as the race winner earlier on in the day. Helped in part by brother Egidio getting a drive-through penalty for missing out the chicane on the first lap and therefore abusing track limits. But even so, it was a good drive by Daniele Perfetti. The first race had a fair bit of drama. On the opening lap, Michael Broniewski tried to get up the inside of Egidio Perfetti down at the chicane, missed his braking point, went straight on, cut the chicane. So too did Perfetti, and also behind Maurice Ricci, who was sort of judging his braking point against that of the cars ahead, missed out the chicane. So all three got a drive-through penalty. There was then a rather large accident between the Ferraris in 488, Patrick van Glebacker and Mara Cordoni, the championship leader. Cordoni looked as though he had some sort of brake failure because he just didn't seem to slow at all, cannoned into van Glebacker, who was turning into the chicane. And Cordoni, assuming the car is fit to run, will have a 10-place grid drop by way of penalty. So he is the man that starts at the back of the grid going into this race. So the field working its way then now out on track, and the grid girls ready to receive the cars. Not everybody has ventured out. I still think we've got one or two cars with last-minute bits of work being done. There's not much of a break between the qualifying race and the main race, only a couple of hours in real terms, and so any team that has had a problem hasn't had a huge amount of time to work on it. And the two Ferraris I was talking about, Van Glebacker and Mara Cordoni's cars, both out of the same team, both AF Corsa cars. Now, AF Corsa certainly has lots of personnel, it has lots of Ferraris, but what it hasn't been able to do is get lots of time. So whether those two cars reach the back of the grid, time will tell. This race is 40 minutes in duration, and the system is that it's a single race, one driver for one car, no pit stops, it's just a straightforward race. And the series catering for gentleman racers, the bronze graded driver, those coming into motor racing either from track days or from amateur level, wanting to race at a higher level but without perhaps the pressure of being in the Blancpain GT Series Endurance Cup, where you've got to get out of the way of the real pro drivers and you spend a lot of your time looking in the mirror rather than enjoying your racing. So noticeably quite a few people on this grid have come from that. Others, like Mark Soord, who's been racing for ever and a day, he has decided that this is a nice place to enjoy his racing in his later years. Jan Brunstedt the same, the Audi driver there. You can see the Swede coming up towards senior. Jan Brunstedt used to race successfully in historic chevrons. He's raced in super touring cars, but now moving to the less high-pressured environment of this championship. They've had races already at Misano and at Brands Hatch. There is of course, this race at Paul Ricard, then the doubleheader at Spa, and then Barcelona at the start of October still to come. So it's a nice calendar. There's quite a bit of track time for them, and a condensed calendar as well. They're not here Thursday and hanging around. They can arrive Friday afternoon, get on with the serious business of racing and qualifying over 2 days, and then fly back home, back to the desk to earn the money to pay for the next weekend of racing. And it's certainly a championship that is growing all the time. More and more cars, more and more drivers coming in, and because this balances GT3 regulations and G3, the RAC Belgium regulation, and cars from one-make championships, you don't have to have the very latest machinery, so you've got more variety in this. You've got Lamborghini Gallardos, for example, that you don't really see terribly many of these days. You've got the BMW Z4 that's kind of become only a club-level car rather than this championship. You've got the older Mercedes SLS AMG GT3 there, Mark Soord's car, for example. So it's a good series for the driver, and it's also a good series for car owners because it gives a home to existing machinery. They're not becoming worthless cars with more modern spec machinery being introduced. There is still a home for them, and they can still be competitive, and that was proved earlier on in the day, because the battle we had briefly for the race lead in the qualifying race was the new Mercedes of Daniele Perfetti versus the older Mercedes of Daniel Voigt. There is the older Lamborghini. Number 17 is the car of Coach McKenzie, the German, with its sort of jungle colour scheme. The air being blown into the cockpit to keep the driver moderately fresh. 40 minutes inside one of these cars is going to be hard work. It's a hot day. There's a bit more of a breeze than we had yesterday, but even so, Paul Ricard has got barely a cloud in the sky. There's the old little wisp of white above the circuit, whereas yesterday, completely blue sky. There in the HP Racing Mercedes, that is Daniel Voigt, who lines up second on the grid on the outside of the front row. Had his first podium of the championship earlier on in the day. And Daniel Voigt with the older Mercedes taking on some liquid before he has to do battle against the newer Mercedes run by the ACA ASP team in the hands of Daniele Perfetti, the traditional gull-wing doors on the SLS AMG GT3. It's going to be a rolling start, of course, and Daniele Perfetti's Mercedes to make its way up to the line in a moment. There is number 63 of Nico van der Donk, the Corvette, run from Patrick Sellerslag's team. In the background there you can see Marc Soord's Mercedes heading into view. Marc, who was winning the Renault 12 championship in this country back in 1971. He's raced in single-seater Renault-powered categories and then has spent decades racing in myriad GT cars and sports prototype cars. Had a spell in Group C. He's raced in lots of different incarnations of the French Touring Car Championship and a hugely experienced driver. So this is how the championship looks coming into this race. Mario Cordoni 5 points ahead of Mikhail Broniewski. Then Nicolas Misselin, absent this weekend, third. Karim Auger, not racing today. He was busy on Blancpain GT duty yesterday. He's fourth ahead of Patrick van Glabacker. Pier Giuseppe Perezzini not racing this weekend, sixth ahead of Martin Lanting, Nico van der Donk, Alexis de Bernardini. And then Coach McKenzie into the top 10 ahead of Steve Earle and Pierre Hershey. Pierre Hershey got himself in a bit of a skirmish in the earlier race, but no action taken. So the BMW Z4 that he has set to go in this race. Daniele Perfetti, 8 points on the board by dint of winning today's qualifying race. That puts him on the same tally as Jean-Michel Barthes. Then it's Daniel Voigt scoring for the first time ahead of Anthony Pons. He's absent. Jan Brunstedt, Maurice Ricci and Gilles Lallemont, who was a retirement from the earlier race. There's the pole man. There is sweet magnate Daniele Perfetti in the Chupa Chups backed Jerome Policon run Mercedes, former British GT champion when he drove with Michael Caine for David Bartram's Motorbase squad. And Daniele Perfetti suggesting after the qualifying race earlier on that the car hasn't got as much grunt as others in a straight line, but it is good through the corners, and that was proved really in the final sector of the lap where he was able to make up time through the twisty section. We'll see how he fares in a straight line. The cars are going to be released shortly. They're looking down onto the grid. Ferrari number 48, which is the car in the hands of Martin Lanting. Now, he was the winner of the Iron Cup earlier on in the day. That's for the over 60s. So there's a separate award. There's the overall championship, but there's the separate sub-series for the older drivers. And it was Martin Lanting, the winner of that, with Steve Earle on the podium as well earlier on in the day. Marc Soord, the runner-up in that category. The white Porsche you can see there is that of Egidio Perfetti that was on pole position for the qualifying race, led, but had the penalty applied after it went up the sort of escape road. To an extent, Perfetti couldn't have done much about it because he was being dive-bombed by Broniewski, but the race officials decided that he could have made more of an effort to turn through because Broniewski was fully ahead of him by the time they got to the clipping point for the corner. And Maurice Ricci behind also got a penalty because he was watching what was going on and missed his braking point as well. And so rather than try and turn through, he just followed the leaders and skipped the chicane. There is Nico van der Donk, another regular over the seasons in the Blancpain GT series, getting ready to go in the Corvette, run by Patrick Sellerslag's team. And there is the Mentos Racing Porsche in the hands of Egidio Perfetti. Now, his progress up onto the back of his brother Daniele will be worth watching in this. We've got 3 minutes and counting to the start of the formation lap, but Egidio Perfetti was very, very rapid indeed in qualifying to get pole position. He was very rapid for the laps that he did before the penalty was applied, and then had to carve his way back through the order, and that's the man that he was having to race with, Michael Broniewski's Ferrari, which also nearly did a Cordoni by trying to dive bomb again later in the race, and they got up onto the curb, and thankfully they survived. But Michael Broniewski, class winner last night in the 6-hour GT race here, looking to try and add a victory in this to his tally if he possibly can. He won both races at Brands Hatch, so Mario Cordoni has had a win. That came at Misano, 2 wins at Brands to Broniewski, and then a win here for this man, Daniele Perfetti. The other driver that's won but isn't here this weekend is Nicolas Misselin, regular Ferrari challenge racer of years past. So the car's about to be released. The final minute counts down, engines are fired up, the grid is being cleared, and then the cars will be released onto the 5-kilometre plus lap. The difference, if you've been watching this weekend's Blancpain GT Series Endurance Cup, the difference in lap is that they don't do the complete Mistral straight. They use the chicane midway through, so there's the chicane Nord, you go left, right, left, back onto the Mistral straight, so it breaks the speed a little bit for what is a grid of largely amateur racers. Field then about to accelerate away. Got a problem for Martin Lanting, who does get going, but that causes a little bit of consternation behind. He does get going now, but front of the grid had gone, the back of the grid having to wait for Lanting's Ferrari to pick up pace. So the cars work their way down then towards turn 1. And the two Ferraris that had the accident earlier on in the day, Patrick van Glabeke and Mario Cordoni, both missing from the grid as the cars went past me. Daniele Perfetti then starts on pole position. Daniel Voigt with him at the front of the grid. Coach McKenzie is on the second row of the grid, and it is Martin Lanting who will line up alongside. So it's Mercedes lockout at the front, then it's Lamborghini and Ferrari on the second row of the grid. Row 3 is where you find Alexis de Bernardi, and then lining up alongside him, Nico van Dierendonck in the Corvette. The fourth row, Egidio Perfetti, and alongside him, Michael Bronizeski. Two to watch to see what progress can be made ahead of Jean-Michel Bart and Marc Soord in the Mercedes number 30. The next row is where you find Pierre Hershey and Steve Earle, very experienced drivers both. The same can be applied to describe Jan Brudstedt and Claude-Yves Gosselin, who are on the 7th row. Row 8 is Louis-Philippe Cernan and Maurice Ricci, who was also doing Blancpain endurance duty last night. Jean-Paul Buffin is on row 9 alongside Willem de Pundet. Row 10, Klaus-Dieter Frers, and the South African driver Leon Price alongside him, another ex-Blancpain GT racer when he had his McLaren MP412C. Martin Grab and Father Perfetti Augusto on row 11. Row 12 is Yoshiki Omura. Pierre Falgione is alongside. On row 13, Gary Kondakov and Christophe Ulrich. Gilles Lallemont is on row 14, and he will complete the grid. The two battered Ferraris of Patrick van Glabeke and Mario Cordoni missing this second race, and I've not seen anybody appear to start at the end of the pit lane, so we're going to be without those two cars. And by not starting this race, therefore, the 10-place grid drop that Cordoni earned for his accident earlier on in the day will carry on to the next race, because it's the next race that you participate in, and he's not participating in this. So the car's up towards Signes, weaving around to get some warmth into the Pirelli rubber, and then 40 minutes of racing in very hot temperatures will get underway. Daniele Perfetti then, perhaps, you could argue, the man to beat, given his CV, but then again, Michael Bronizeski, in a short space of time, has done quite a lot of racing, and successfully, not just with Blancpain, but in the Ferrari Challenge, in the European Le Mans Series. He's got a lot of good racing and a lot of miles under his belt in a short space of time. So Bronizeski, who was a class winner last night at the 6-hour Blancpain GT race that we had here, going into the night, he is ready to go as he gets himself up the inside there of Egidio Perfetti's white Porsche that turns its way now through the long right-hander of turn 11. And so at the end of this lap, we're going to be good to go. 40 minutes of racing. There you can see Daniel Voigt's older Mercedes that will tuck up alongside Daniele Perfetti when they get through the Virage du Pont up towards the timing line. And then we will be good to go for this, the third main race, the 6th race in total of this year's series. Next stop, somewhere else that's new for them this year, the Spa-Francorchamps circuit, supporting the Total 24 Hours. And so Daniele Perfetti and Daniel Voigt, then the two front row drivers, get themselves side by side. There behind is the distinctive green Lamborghini of Coach McKenzie, and up alongside him is Martin Lanting, the Ferrari driver. The car a little bit reluctant to get going onto this green flag lap, but it's picked up pace nicely, and Lanting will be in the mix for sure. Behind Nico van Dierendonck with a Corvette, another man to watch here, as the cars now work their way up through the Virage du Pont. The pace car, as it is, will peel into the pit lane. The lights on the gantry are red. If the race directors, Alain Adam and Joel Duval, are happy with the formation, they'll give the command to get the race underway as they work their way now then up towards the timing line. Mercedes at the front of the grid, Daniele Perfetti with his nose slightly in advance, but the lights go green, we're racing, and Perfetti it is who blasts away on the inside down towards turn 1. Daniel Voigt tries to go round the outside of him. He brakes as late as he dares, and he's done it. He goes round the outside into the lead of the race. A good, brave move by Daniel Voigt in the HP Racing Mercedes to take up the race lead. Goes a little bit wide out of turn 2, and that brings Daniele Perfetti up onto his tail, and now alongside Perfetti there has the inside down towards turn 3. Is he going to be able to brake late enough? Yes, he does go through. Lanting is up to 3rd. third. Mackenzie is fourth, and charging up to fifth already is Bronizeski. A really good start. So Michael Bronizeski up into fifth place, about to go for fourth. Is he up the inside? No, not quite, no gap there. So Mackenzie's Lamborghini fends him off. Then it's Van Dierendonck, then Soord, and Egidio Perfetti not making the same progress as Bronizeski is making, as their number 9, Jean-Paul Bouffin, tries to get up the inside in the multicoloured Mercedes. Race leaders work their way now up towards turn 7 that brings them onto the Mistral straight. At the back of the pack, Gary Kondakov as the race leaders head towards the chicane. Bronizeski up the inside of the Lamborghini, place gained. Is he going to get it all slowed down? Yes, this time around he does, unlike lap 1 of race 1. Egidio Perfetti gaining a place in the Porsche, under braking as they wriggle their way now through the chicane, heading up towards the continuation of the Mistral straight. There you've got Pierre Hershey fending off 89, Maurice Ricci trying to make amends for his lowly grid position by dint of the penalty that he suffered in race 1, that drive-through, but Ricci was running third at the time. He'd qualified well, so he ought to be able to make good race progress here. Through Sydney they go for the first time. So this fight for the race lead between Perfetti and Voigt, and then making progress all the while. Bronizeski in the black Ferrari getting himself up into the mix as well. There's the race leader, working his way up through a final sequence of corners. Daniele Perfetti then, having got himself back into the lead despite that good start by Voigt, he will now turn up towards the Virage du Lac, clear of anybody else, and look at the gap he's pulled now. Voigt second. In third place, it's Lanting's Ferrari. Fourth, the black Ferrari of Bronizeski. That's going to be the one to watch now. He needs to get through the traffic before Perfetti in the Mercedes gets away. The Ferraris in Blancpain GT Endurance Cup terms proved to be very, very quick in a straight line around here. But of course, these cars equated in a slightly different way. Is the Ferrari going to have the same straight line advantage? Over the timing line they go. It is Perfetti leading the way. Voigt second, Lanting is third. In fourth place now is Bronizeski ahead of Mackenzie, and then sixth is Van Dierendonck. So Bronizeski on an absolute mission. We've got one car running wide in the background. That was the Porsche of Perfetti. There is Coach Mackenzie's Lamborghini. And now up into third place, Bronizeski. He sorted out Lanting since they came over the timing line. And the next target for Bronizeski is going to be Daniel Voigt. He's 3.6 seconds behind the race leader. So it's certainly feasible that this can be a win for Bronizeski. He's pushing on as the cars work their way now through turn 6. Coach Mackenzie in the Lamborghini, making his way now onto the Mistral straight. Behind him is Nico Van Dierendonck, and behind Van Dierendonck is Egidio Perfetti in the white Porsche. So you've got one on its own pretty much. Here now is the battle for second and third places. Bronizeski up the inside, easily sorts out Daniel Voigt coming up towards the chicane. And there, look, Perfetti gets ahead of Van Dierendonck as well. So the Mentos Racing Porsche, the white Porsche, making similarly good progress. Not quite as good on the first lap, but Perfetti Jr. is now storming on. So Daniele Perfetti leads the way. Egidio Perfetti now into the top 6. There is Michael Bronizeski in the black Ferrari. Not the same car, of course, that he races in Blancpain in the GT series, but he's now hustling on behind. He's in second spot and will start to hack away at that advantage that Perfetti has. So the race leaders then, currently on lap number 2, is there. Nico Van Dierendonck tries to keep at bay the number 65 Ferrari from the Kessel team of Alexis de Bernardi. De Bernardi up the inside, and already people are being warned about track limits. And the first recipient of a warning flag is Leon Price. The South African is in 18th place, as there Mackenzie has to defend from Perfetti's Porsche. Through Virage du Lac they come for the second time of asking. And Bronizeski absolutely storming. Personal best sector 1, absolute best sector 2. So it's going to be Mercedes versus Ferrari by a reduced margin, surely, as they come over the timing line. Perfetti goes through, and 4 seconds is the starting point. There is Perfetti, the black Ferrari behind a Bronizeski, and these two in a race of their own at the moment. Voigt third in the Mercedes, fourth, look in the background there, Martin Lanting, fifth, Coach Mackenzie in the Lamborghini, and Egidio Perfetti up into 6th spot in the Porsche. Through they come, working their way now up towards turn 3, and Egidio Perfetti is about to make a move on the Lamborghini as they head down towards the braking zone. Is there a gap on the inside? Not really. He thought about it, but it wasn't to be. The cars working their way now through the right-hander out of turn 5. There is Coach Mackenzie on the podium for the first time earlier on in the day. Onto the Mistral straight they come now. Now there's Voigt in 3rd spot. Martin Lanting not really a threat. The real battle going on here is for 5th, isn't it? Lamborghini versus Porsche. as they get to the braking zone for the chicane. Porsche through already, easy peasy up the inside, so Egidio Perfetti goes through, takes another place. Trouble is that while he's having to do the work up the road, runner Daniele is starting to try and build this gap over Michael Bronizeski, but Sector 1 the gap was down, Sector 2 the gap was down. So Bronizeski is certainly closing now, and the battle will be well and truly joined shortly between the pair. There's Egidio Perfetti in the white Porsche. Next target is Martin Lanting as they work their way now up towards turn 11 out of that, and the Porsche with good exit speed tries to get up alongside Lanting in the Ferrari. Martin Lanting in the Iron Cup for the over 60s for AF Corsa in the Ferrari, trying to keep the Mentos racing car at bay, but number 888 up alongside. To the outside line now goes Perfetti. That'll be the inside line for Virage du Lac. Job done. Bit of curb used on the inside, but nothing wrong with that. So up another place goes Egidio Perfetti. He's going to be fourth come the end of the lap. There's Marc Soord in the silver Mercedes through ahead of Nico van Dierendonck, then Alexis de Bernardi in the Ferrari next over the timing line. The leaders go by and the gap's down 3.7 seconds. So through they run, heading into turn 1. You've got Daniel Voigt there third now, up to fourth is Perfetti. And it won't be long before he's going to be threatening for that third place. But what are his lap times like relative to those ahead? He's doing 2 minutes 10s, but it's not really fair to compare just yet because, of course, Perfetti has always been in traffic, always trying to overtake people. Down they work towards turn 4. Martin Lanting here trying to keep at bay. Coach McKenzie in the Lamborghini. The Gallardo, the older type of car, on the back of the 458, the older Ferrari, as they now turn out of turn 7 onto the Mistral straight. Look up the road. Perfetti in the Porsche, right on the tail of Voigt in the Mercedes. That's for third place now. They were 1 second apart starting the lap and just strolling on by. Egidio Perfetti up the inside line. He's got the line, brakes late, gets the job done, coming into the chicane Nord. So through he goes. Perfetti's now our first and third, and sandwiched between them is Michael Bronizeski. The leader, Daniele Perfetti, turning his way up through senior. There in second spot, Bronizeski through, and then the long, long line for third, headed by Egidio Perfetti, ahead of Voigt, ahead of Lanting there. Sixth is McKenzie, gap back. Seventh is the venerable Marc Soord. Eighth is Nico van Dierendonck in the Corvette. And for 9th and 10th places, it is Alexis de Bernardi. And then behind him to round out the top 10, currently, is Jean-Michel Bart in the Audi, the WRT run car. We've had a pit stop from Gilles Lallemand, incidentally, the French driver with his Audi. And the race leaders currently work lap number 4 as they turn their way up toward the completion of the lap, with Daniele Perfetti conscious that he's being caught by Bronizeski, and he's just done the absolute best last sector to therefore pull the gap out again over Bronizeski, but it stays at 3.6 seconds over the course of the lap, gaining in some sectors, losing in others. Fastest lap of the race, though, now Egidio Perfetti. 2 minutes 8.983, the man in third place, absolutely flying, and it's 8.7 seconds, first to third now. So, cumulatively, the gap is coming down. If you take more cars, you've got more heading into that leading gaggle. Third, Egidio Perfetti closing on Bronizeski, and 89 now, which is Maurice Ricci down in 11th place, being warned about disrespecting track limits at turn 10. And turn 10 is senior, where the cars go very, very wide indeed. This battle is for now 5th place. Martin Lanting ahead of Coach McKenzie as they work their way down towards turn 5. McKenzie trying to work out how he can dislodge Martin Lanting, a class winner earlier on in the day. And now they sprint their way up through turn 7 onto the Mistral straight. We've got the first quarter of the race just about completed, and a lot's happened in it. So those drivers that had loaded grid positions working their way up the order. Bronizeski doing much of the hard work early on in the race. Heading into the chicane, Lanting versus McKenzie. This the battle now for 5th and 6th places as Bronizeski does the absolute best middle sector in his efforts to get onto the tail of Daniele Perfetti, and he's hustling on, that is for certain, as the cars now work their way up once more towards the right-hander at senior. A great Italian battle this. You've got Ferrari versus Lamborghini as the cars turn their way up through turn 11 now. McKenzie up the inside, way up the curb. realised at the last minute it wasn't going to work, had to stand on everything, but put himself in jeopardy there by being way up the curb. So he has to hang on to what for him currently is 6th place. Martin Lanting maintains the advantage, and the race leaders come up towards the timing line. Now let's see whether 8.7 seconds over the top 3 has come down. There's Lanting for 4th still, behind him Coach McKenzie. Ideally the people that this championship is aimed for, and Martin Lanting, as I said earlier on, the Iron Cup winner earlier on in the day. That's the class for the over 60-year-olds, so people that successfully drive desks in the week come racing at weekend. There's a great battle also there, look, for 7th, 8th and 9th places. Mark Sword, Nico van Dierendonck, and then Alexis de Bernardi all together. McKenzie having another look up the inside for track position into turn 1, but he can't find a way past Martin Lanting. Ahead of them in no man's land, rather, is Daniel Voigt, because he is in 4th, not catching, not being caught. 8.7 across the top 3 is now 8.1, so it is coming down a little bit, but equally the lead gap has gone out. So that time around, Perfetti D lapping quicker than Bronizeski, and then Perfetti E in 3rd place, lapping quicker than both. 2 times now, back to back. The fastest lap of the race has been done by Egidio Perfetti. Mark Sword there goes through, keeping at bay Van Dierendonck. Alexis de Bernardi in the black and blue Ferrari, working his way out of turn 6, now heading up towards the Mistral Straight. But de Bernardi, who has been quick but not a podium finisher yet this year, presses on as the cars work their way now up towards the chicane once more. We're on lap number 6. We had a full course yellow in the earlier race, no safety car, but the race was briefly neutralised whilst we had some debris to clear and some wrecked cars to move. So far, we've been under green flag conditions as the race leaders work their way back onto the Mistral Straight. So up front, it is Daniele Perfetti, the leader, 4 seconds clear. He was at the start of this lap of Michael Bronizeski. The gap down fractionally in both of the first 2 sectors, but only by thousandths of a second, so that's not really enough for Bronizeski to think that he's in with a shout just yet. Ferrari will have the advantage at certain parts of the lap, the Mercedes at others, as the battle here for 5th place. Lanting and McKenzie works its way up through turn 12. The run now up towards the completion of the lap, because they will swing out of Virage du Lac to Virage du Pont, which is that very tight right-hander that brings them onto the pit straight, down which has just gone Daniele Perfetti in the lead of the race. The gap is going up, 4.3 seconds now. Perfetti looking like he's got the measure over Bronizeski, but Bronizeski in turn is being caught hand over fist by Egidio Perfetti's white Porsche in 3rd place. 4th is Voigt, and then this is the fight for 5th. Lanting through, behind him McKenzie goes through now. Out of turn 1 goes the Lamborghini. Coach McKenzie almost there. He's had one proper go, hasn't he, to get past Lanting's AF Corsa Ferrari, but can't do it just yet. The HP Racing Lamborghini Gallardo, Harry Propchik's team. Harry we've seen in Blancpain, we've seen in touring cars as well, in TCR. He's the man that oversees this squad. Nose to tail they run through turn 5 now, but Martin Lanting just seems to have the answer. Now, there's an incident at turn 11 being investigated. Turn 11 being de Bosset, the corner after Senior, and it is between Alexis de Bernardi and Nico van Dierendonck. So the 2 drivers that are currently squabbling over 8th and 9th places. We've had the change around between them as well, so de Bernardi has gone through, and potentially in rather a robust fashion. So that is being looked at. Might mean that there's a penalty coming, might not be anything at all, but the officials are going to have a look at it. As there, Martin Lanting powers his way back onto the Mistral Straight. The man he's chasing there is Daniel Voigt, look, going through Senior, but Voigt in turn is a long way up the road. He is at 5 seconds plus up the road. Lanting having to spend most of his time, of course, fending off the challenge of that car. The Lamborghini behind in the hands of Coach McKenzie now runs up towards the right-hander at turn 11. Through de Bosset they go, named after the nearby village, and wide is Lanting. Does that give the Lamborghini a chance to get up the inside? It doesn't. Lanting still gets good drive out of the corner, so he still hangs on to the place therefore. Nose to tail they run now, up through Bendor, through the Courbe de Gamelon, and then up towards Virage du Lac, where McKenzie has a sort of tentative look up the inside, but Coach McKenzie in the Lamborghini not able to do anything about Lanting there, and the car now seems to lose pace and look all twitchy all of a sudden. So he had a go, it didn't work. And look, he's lost time, and all the way through those last couple of corners, it just looked a very nervous proposition. Marc Soud up towards the timing line, about to be under attack there. Alexis de Bernardi in the Ferrari tries to get past the French driver, but Marc Soud, with decades of experience, manages to fend him off as they head down towards turn 1. Alexis de Bernardi breaks as late as he dares, dives at the inside of Soud, who has to let him go. The Ferrari is coming through. You make your own arrangements, Mark. So Alexis de Bernardi goes by, picks up the place. Third place is currently the Porsche. Fourth place is this Mercedes for Daniel Voigt. And then fifth and sixth, which was ever thus, really. Martin Lanting keeping at bay the green Lamborghini in the hands of Coach McKenzie. Now that's for second place. Bronizeski has been reeled in by Perfetti. Michael Bronizeski, who was trying to catch the race leading Perfetti, now under attack from the third place Perfetti. Egidio, brother of the leader Daniele, has got himself right up to the Ferrari. They started together on the fourth row of the grid. Bronizeski did much of his hard work on the opening lap of the race, but Perfetti now right up behind him and looking to see where he can make the move as the cars work their way up through Senior this time. Out of turn 11, nose to tail. Where does Egidio Perfetti try to make the move? They sprint their way up towards turn 12 now. Into bend door. Perfetti trying to distract Bronizeski, moving around in his mirrors, trying to unsettle the Ferrari driver, try and force a mistake and prise open the door. But at the moment, Bronizeski is having none of it. They run still, nose to tail now up towards Virage du Lac. We're on lap number 8. We are not quite at the halfway point, and Bronizeski under huge pressure. Meantime, they're going to come up across some traffic before long, because not that far up the road is Gary Kondakov's Ferrari that's going to be lapped. Through goes the leader. So Daniele Perfetti puts 8 laps in the book. Bronizeski falling back while he's busy defending. 5 seconds he is adrift of the leader. And Egidio Perfetti in the white Porsche tries the outside line, heading into the braking zone for turn 1. Can't do it, and has to tuck in behind as they work their way now. Left and then right, back onto the power, and down towards turn 3. Memento's Porsche into the braking zone, rides the curb a little bit on the inside, but Bronizeski perhaps is starting to feel a little bit weary, having done lots of miles around here over the course of the weekend against the fresher Perfetti. He really is coming under attack now. The two of them accelerate their way through turn 7, speed building all the while here. You can run out a little bit wide and keep up the momentum. That's exactly what Perfetti does in the Porsche. And now onto the Mistral straight. Is he close enough to think about the move up the inside? Bronizeski will defend as best he can. Into the braking zone, Perfetti thinks, but doesn't commit to it. He's not quite close enough. So Bronizeski hanging on to his second place for now. And while this battle rages on, so the race leader Daniele Perfetti continues to build the gap, but now a really good exit from the chicane. That, with a flash of the lights, puts Egidio Perfetti onto the back of the Ferrari. Is he going to pull out and have a go on the inside of Senior? He thinks about it. Again, he's trying to distract Bronizeski, but it doesn't work there for him. Wide they go, but not getting towards those floppy markers put there to make sure people don't stay wide coming out of the corner. Now through turn 11, they run still tied together. Perfetti on the back of the Ferrari now. This for second place. And there is a drive-through penalty coming for number 65, Alexis de Bernardi, for overtaking out track. So in other words, by exceeding track limits to make an overtaking manoeuvre. So de Bernardi in 7th place will get a drive-through. This, the battle for second spot, coming up towards the last corner of lap number 9. Over the timing line is about to go the race leader, Daniele Perfetti. He's got traffic to sort out now. Look up the road, you can see it's getting a bit busier. Through second and third, Bronizeski goes over the line, being pursued by Egidio Perfetti. And down now towards turn 1 with a big flash of the lights there. The leader, Perfetti, has got the traffic ahead. Now that just might compromise his run for the next few corners. What would it do for Bronizeski? What would it do for Egidio Perfetti? Ferrari leading this battle for second place, down towards turn 4. And they run together as they swoop their way down towards the right-hander at turn 5. Tight second gear corner, burst of acceleration. Bronizeski having to be careful not to go too wide. Well, he does go wide, but he's able to get the better out of all of that by maintaining momentum, and then actually gaps the Porsche just by a couple of lengths as they swoop their way back now onto the Mistral straight once again. We're on lap 10, and we are just over half distance. And that's Gary Kondakov in the Ferrari, about to be lapped, gets out of the way, well out of the way in fact, drives off the road. So keen is he not to impede the quicker drivers, so the Kaspersky COO gets out of harm's way. Leaders have gone past him, and the leader, singular, working his way through lots of traffic now. Daniele Perfetti nearly 6 seconds clear of the opposition. But there, in the Mentos Racing Porsche, goes Egidio Perfetti out of senior. Now up towards turn 11, through de Beausset, through the corner, where he has got Michael Bronizeski ahead. They run a little bit wide through that long, long corner. Power up now towards Bendor. So the race leader, Daniele Perfetti, getting away all the while, helped not only by his own pace, but also by this battle for second, delaying the two involved. Egidio Perfetti wants to get through, might even be able to do something about his brother, were he to get past the Ferrari. But for now, Bronizeski doing what he has to do, and that is defend the line. Past the pits they come, 18 more minutes on the clock. And now down towards turn 1 there, heading into the braking zone is 23 Martin Grab. He's a lap down, second and third, nose to tail again. This is Perfetti's chance. He's got the inside line down towards turn 3, and he makes it stick. Rides the curb on the inside, but the Porsche has been remorseless in its pursuit of the Ferrari, and eventually, job done. Through on the inside goes Egidio Perfetti. So for the family, it is a 1-2, but it's Mercedes ahead of Porsche. It is Chupa Chups ahead of Mentos in terms of the sweet brands they're promoting. And now what can Egidio Perfetti do about brother Daniele up the road? The starting point, 6.3 seconds. There's traffic ahead as well. Martin Grab is about to be negotiated in his AF Corsa Ferrari as they head towards the braking zone for the chicane. Perfetti busy on the lights there. And running wide, Martin Grab off the road. He was rather terrorised into that, I think, and he eventually just bails, lets them go, threads his way back towards the circuit. Doesn't want to get in anybody's way, and so Egidio Perfetti goes through, being chased very hard indeed now by Michael Bronizeski, but the Porsche, in theory, should be able to pull away. The way that it's been able to catch up to the Ferrari suggests it's got better pace. So now let's see. Wide out, over the curb goes 888. Egidio Perfetti in second spot. There are more driving standards flags being unfurled, one of which will go the way for track limit abuse to 52. Which is Gary Kondakov, and there's a number 15 being shown a flag as well, we're told, but there isn't a 15 in the entry, so we'll ignore that for now. Look at the gap that Perfetti has pulled over third-placed Michael Bronizeski. The Ferrari falling away, and so now Egidio Perfetti with clear road ahead. That's a spinning Martin Grab then. That's up towards the Virage du Lac, towards the completion of the lap that he's had his moment. So remember, he was being lapped, got out of harm's way. Now he's had a drama, but there's no damage to the car. There's plenty of runoff, so he'll be able to get himself back on track and carry on in the race. 6.9 seconds then is what we have Daniele to Egidio Perfetti. The two brothers then, first and second. Augusto Perfetti, their father, is down in 22nd place at the moment in number 154, his Mentos Racing Porsche. What they need to try and do is get a lap on Dad and then keep him with them for the end of the race and get the family photo finish. Egidio Perfetti there then, working now lap 12 with still 15 minutes on the clock. There's number 21, Pierre Hershey, in 12th spot. Now, Pierre, a regular for years past in the Blancpain GT Series Endurance Cup, as also for a time was the man ahead of him, Jan Brunstedt. Indeed, Jan was a class winner at Silverstone going back to the 2013 season, 2012 season, apologies, turning his way down through turn 5 now. There, number 12, Audi, that's the car of Jean-Michel Bat, chasing after Marc Soud. So almost everybody, I think, has got somebody to battle against now. And 29 cars this weekend, only 27 race fit for the main race, but it's been the busiest grid yet in the championship, and therefore there's a lot more happening all the way down through the field. Marshall ready with the blue flag as Mark Sood, who is currently running in 9th place, heads up towards the braking zone for the chicane. Mark Sood has done many a lap around here in his long career. So the experienced French driver keeping Jean-Michel Bart behind him, the Belgian driving for Team WRT. Now they're about to have to lap the Ferrari there. That's Martin Grab, who is down in 26th place. He's had a spin, as we saw a lap ago, within the next sequence of corners, but Mark Sood bearing down on him. The lead gap is coming down, incidentally, because over a second has just been pulled back by Egidio Perfetti against Daniele for the race lead, so it's down to 5.8 seconds now. And the cars working their way up through Virage du Lac for, in this battle's case, the 12th time. There is Jean-Michel Bart in the WRT Audi. Brakes for Virage du Pont. And behind, and not really doing much about catching, is Jan Brunstedt, quite a long way adrift. Martin Lanting has finally been overtaken by Coach McKenzie in the green Lamborghini, so that battle we were looking at earlier on for 5th has now changed. McKenzie dropping back behind, dropping ahead of the Ferrari. There is Sood, there is Bart. That's the fight going on for 9th and 10th places, down through turn 1 now. Jean-Michel Bart hustling on, trying to get onto the tail of Mark Sood, but the big, powerful, grunty Mercedes hanging on for the moment to its 9th place as the cars head now down into turn 4. Now there, race leader in traffic, is that Perfetti? No, is that Maurice Ricci in the sister car? That's Maurice Ricci in 7th place, so similar car, the ACA ASP Mercedes getting past Gary Kondakov. Just up the road there you can see Coach McKenzie. And that therefore means that Ricci in the Mercedes has also got himself up past Martin Lanting's Ferrari there. So Lanting dropping places over the couple of laps here. Up towards the chicane, through the left, right, and then this gradual left that brings them back onto the Mistral straight. Coach McKenzie in the Lamborghini then getting away up front, 5th spot, but he's got to make up 8 seconds before he can think about attacking Daniel Voigt, and that I don't think is going to happen. He's too far back. He needs either a safety car or a problem for Voigt to bring him back into the mix. Pierre Hershey gaining a place over Jan Brunstedt, lower down in 11th, as you see there. Martin Lanting working his way up towards the end of the lap. Now, has Lanting got a problem? Because he's lost places and he's lost time as well. What was his last lap time all about? It was a 2:13, so he did lose ground. But is it a problem? Let's see what the next lap's going to be, because certainly he doesn't look as though he's got anything by which to respond, does he, as the cars turn up now towards Virage du Pont. He's down in 7th spot, having been running a good 5th early on in the race. Over the timing line goes the race lead battle. It is down again, 5.4 seconds. 3rd remains Bronizeski, falling away. 4th is Voigt. 5th, McKenzie. 6th, Maurice Ricci. 7th, the Ferrari you're looking at in the background there of Martin Lanting. And then 8th should be Nico van Dierendonk's Corvette. In 9th place, Mark Sood. And 10th, Jean-Michel Bart in the best of the Audis in the race. So there is Lanting. The lap that he has just done was a 2:14. He is certainly going slower. Now, it might be that the heat is starting to tell on some of the drivers. Don't forget, Martin is over 60 years of age, so you could excuse him perhaps being not as fit as some of the others, but it might be that the Ferrari is developing a problem as well. So either way, Lanting losing places and losing time. He's 6 seconds ahead of Nico van Dierendonk in the Corvette. Is that going to come down by the end sufficiently to enable a pass to take place? Down to the chicane they come. Nose to tail, Mark Sood trying to fend off Jean-Michel Bart, who's going to have a go. Is he up the inside? No, the door closed just in the nick of time by Mark Sood. And so as they power their way now back onto the Mistral straight, it is game on between them. Jean-Paul Blancpain into the chicane in the background. But Marc Soord working his way now up towards Senior. Soord getting away once more through the right-hander. So we're on to lap number 15. The lead gap is 5 seconds. There is Van Dierendonck going through in the Corvette. And he's chasing after Martin Lanting for 7th place. And of course, having to be mindful of where this battle is behind. They're not that far adrift. Number 30 goes through. Marc Soord. And Jean-Michel Bart in the Audi at certain parts of the lap drops away, at others closes up. Such is the way that the cars are balanced in this category. It's a great series aimed at bringing together the older drivers, the amateur drivers, the less experienced drivers, giving them a good level playing field. They've raced at Misano, they've raced at Brands. After Paul Ricard, they go to Spa, they go to Barcelona. And this main race is the one that you need to score well in for the championship. The qualifying race only has points on offer for the top 6, and you get 8 for a win. Here it's to the top 10 and 25 points to the race winner. Format is always a condensed one. You get a free practice session, a qualifying session, a qualifying race, and then the main race. So you don't have to spend days away from your business at the circuit. It's a compact timetable. And there, Jean-Michel Bart turning his way up out of turn 6, chasing Marc Soord. It's a shame we haven't got Mario Cordoni on the grid, because he has had more race wins in this championship than anybody else. But Cordoni's car damaged beyond repair after its accident in the qualifying race earlier on in the day. So that left him on the sidelines. It also left the man he cannoned into, Patrick Van Glabeke, on the sidelines as well, as the cars then now work lap number 15. So the lead gap last time around was 5.1 seconds between the brothers Perfetti up front. Daniele ahead of Egidio. This battle still between Soord and Bartz for 9th place. Swooping their way now out of turn 10, out of Senior, and the race leaders go through. That gap's come down again. It's 4.5 seconds between the top 2 now. Egidio Perfetti almost there, but 7 more minutes of the race remain. It's not going to be easy for him to do this. There's Van Dierendonck still being chased hard by Marc Soord. There's the race leader then, Daniele Perfetti, down at turn 5. And wait for the white Porsche there of his brother behind. It was 4.5 seconds. They've just gone through sector 1, and he's taken a 10th out of him there as well. So the gap continues to come down, no question about it. Some laps there's more of a gain than others, but Egidio Perfetti through the traffic, getting himself up past the Ferrari into the braking zone. You see the Porsche slide a little bit as he brakes as late as he dares, turns the car in, controls it on the throttle, powers out the other side. Egidio Perfetti then 4.5 seconds back. His brother leading the way still. Daniele Perfetti for Mercedes, looking for the double. Michael Broniszewski was the double winner at Brands Hatch, but intriguing how the Ferrari was so good at the start of the race and then fell away, lost all that time to the Porsche there, and has lost a further 6 seconds on top of that. So Broniszewski's early dramatics have really, well, not so much come to naught. He's going to be good for the podium, but not brought the result he was after. And there's a slow Audi. Is that Lallemont pulling off the road? No, it's not. It is, I think, Pierre Pellegione's car that has slowed right down coming out of Courbe de Gabelon. So dramas for the Audi that we just saw in the background, as there, up towards Virage du Lac, goes Daniele Perfetti. In sector 1, he lost a 10th. In sector 2, he lost a 10th. In sector 3, let's see what he loses. There, parked by the side of the road, is Pellegione. So his Santilloc Audi going no further. Up to the timing line goes Egidio Perfetti, 4.4 seconds. It's not come down by much, but come down by a 10th. He actually lost out a little bit in the last sector, wasn't as quick as his brother Daniele there. So what have we got? 5 more minutes, and it's straightforward time. There's no extra lap bolted on at the end. A little bit of debris flicked up there by the Porsche as Egidio Perfetti pushes on. Now through turn 4 comes the Porsche. In the first sector, let's just see, because the Mercedes has completed it now. Through goes the Porsche as the gap comes down. It has,
4,
only by a tenth of a second.
2, 1, full course yellow now.
And the voice you just heard is Alain Adam, the race director, calling for a full course yellow, and that's going to be because of that Audi that has stopped by the side of the road. So Pierre Feligione's car needs retrieving. It is quite close to the racing line, so full course yellow in this second race. We had one in the earlier, we got a full course yellow here, so everyone has to slow down to 80 kilometers an hour. It's not like a safety car where everything bunches up, because if everybody does the correct speed, the gaps shouldn't change. It's like a virtual safety car in F1 speak. So there's Daniele Perfetti, who knows all about this because he had to think about full course yellows in the 6-hour Enduro last night. There is Egidio Perfetti, who would have liked a safety car here to try and close up, but the race director, Alain Adam, would much prefer a full course yellow. They're easier to introduce, they're easier to end, and it doesn't interrupt the flow of the race as much. So the cars at 80 kilometers an hour slowly make their way up now to the right-hander at Senior. There's the Porsche in second spot of Egidio Perfetti. So he was 4.4 seconds back, but 3 minutes on the clock. Now, depending on how long it takes at 80 kilometers an hour to get back to the start line, they're going to get 2 more laps out of this. So we are almost at the end of the period.
4, 3, 2, 1, green flag.
The green flag is deployed, and so everybody puts the foot to the floor and accelerates away again. Was either of the Perfettis quicker on the throttle than the other? Right, 2 3/4 minutes to go up towards the right-hander there. That's turn 13, goes Egidio Perfetti. Just looking to see whether they're going to start the last lap or they can squeeze 2 more out of it. The last lap was a 2 minutes 9. I think we're going to get time just for 2 more laps, depending on where the leader crosses the line relative to the clock. There is Egidio Perfetti, Daniele Perfetti, by about 10 seconds. He's going to squeeze 2 laps out of the race. He comes up towards the timing line. Through they go, and he goes over the line with 2 minutes and 15 on the clock. So by about 6 seconds, he's got 2 more laps to do. So there is just time for this lap and 1 more, unless Daniele Perfetti slows the pace of the car. And there off the road has gone 51 Ferrari. That is Christoph Ulrich, who will get going again. So it's had 2 spins, and a rather dizzy driver gets going again. Was that coming onto the Mistral straight or out of the chicane? It was out of the chicane. So he ran a bit wide, power down, back overtakes front. Round it goes. And then he accelerates away, lights up the tyres and loses it again. So Christoph Ulrich having a torrid time, but keen to get back into the race. The AF Corsa driver does rejoin as the race leaders make their way onto the Mistral straight. 3.7 seconds was the gap. It had come down by half a second in the first sector. So Egidio Perfetti closing on his brother, but might be here that Daniele is thinking about getting the 2 cars much closer for the finish of the race, get the 2 brothers together. I don't think the Porsche is going to catch, but also they're going to squeeze another lap out of it, aren't they? Because there's 1 minute to go. They should get back to the start and finish line in less than a minute. Not by much, but they will get round to the line. So the Perfetti family, first and second. Running wide off the road, though, Egidio Perfetti. Somebody else has had a spin, we understand, in number 12, Jean-Michel Bart. So that drops him away from Mark Soord. It puts Steve Earle into the top 10 now in the Castle Racing Ferrari. So half a minute on the clock, and therefore there's 1 more lap to squeeze out of the race. So 888, Egidio Perfetti up towards the last corner, swings right. He will get back onto the power now, making his way up towards the line, and 7 seconds, 6, 5, over the line they go, and the checkered flag legend comes up and then disappears again. So briefly on the timing screen, the checkered flag had been shown, but not in real terms. So the race does continue. The clock has now hit 0, but we've got now officially confirmed the cars on the last lap. But ever so briefly, drivers crossing the line had been shown a checkered flag next to them. That's now gone away, so we're still racing. And it's the Perfetti brothers first and second, with only 3 seconds between them starting this last lap. But it's still too great a gap, isn't it? Egidio Perfetti has thrown everything at this, but he's not quite going to get there in time. Onto the Mistral straight for the final time. For the 19th time goes Egidio Perfetti. Still chasing on behind Daniele's Mercedes, but it's going to be a race win, barring a problem on this last half of the last lap for the Swiss driver Daniele Perfetti. Brother Egidio, Norwegian by nationality, chases after him as they brake for the chicane, and under braking the gap does come down. But is this Daniele almost playing with his brother, saying, come on, get closer, but you're not going to get past. They're onto the Mistral straight, making the run now. A little bit more debris being blown onto the road there, making the run up towards Senior through the right-hander. Michael Bronizeski, incidentally, having run impressively early on, is now a very distant third, and in fourth spot behind him is Daniel Voigt, fifth Coach McKenzie, and in sixth place Maurice Ricci. But Daniele Perfetti looks like he is on for the double here, because he's only got really 3 more corners to go. Egidio Perfetti turns his way up now through Bendor. The Courbe de Gamelon is next, and then up towards Virage du Lac that brings them towards the paddock. They go left, short burst of acceleration, sharp right that almost hairpins back on itself, and then up towards the start and finish line. So Daniele Perfetti is going to win 2 out of 2 at Paul Ricard, first time out in the Blancpain GT Sports Club, and he's going to win both races. The qualifying race won, now the main race won by Daniele Perfetti, who slows right down to take the flag. Egidio Perfetti, his brother, closes right up at the line as past the pits they go, but a great result for the family, a 1-2 for the Perfettis. Mercedes beats Porsche, and then look at the wait before anybody else comes into view for third place. And the car that does first of all come into view is a lap down anyway, but in the background the black Ferrari of Michael Bronizeski takes third spot. Fourth should go the way of Daniel Voigt's Mercedes. And fifth over the line has just gone the Lamborghini of Coach McKenzie. For sixth, Maurice Ricci set for the place in the Mercedes. And then this car seventh, Martin Lanting, who did drop away as the race wore on. But the 458 Ferrari coming now up towards the timing line. So over the line goes Lanting, and in so doing wins the Iron Cup as well for the over 60s. And it's going to be the same top 3, Lanting, Soord and Steve Earle. Nico van Dierendonk takes 8th, 9th is Mark Soord, and 10th Steve Earle. But Daniele Perfetti, the race winner, Jean-Paul Buffin going very wide, and Pierre Hershey nearly had to pay to get back into the circuit in the BMW, so wide had he gone coming out of the last corner. So 14th and 15th up towards the line they go. But a win for Daniele Perfetti then, and that, as I say, makes it 2 out of 2 here for him. So quite a good idea of his, really, to come and join the championship this weekend. So Daniele Perfetti, the race winner. In the end, the margin was 1.9 seconds over Egidio Perfetti. And then for third place, Michael Bronizeski in the Kessel Racing Ferrari. The Iron Cup won, as earlier on in the day, by Martin Lanting. Second to Mark Soord, and third to Steve Earle. So Daniele Perfetti, door open to get some air into the car. Very happy with his day's work. Not a championship he's been concentrating on, but having raced the Carrera Cup in the UK, had a spell in British GT, then he went off to race Renault Clios in Italy, and almost every year finds a different series to go and play in. But I think might come and do a few more of these races, particularly if he keeps winning them. So Daniele Perfetti, race victor. You could argue, if you're the British GT champion, you are a cut above people that have largely just done track days. But anyway, Daniele Perfetti still graded as bronze and into the championship for this weekend. Michael Bronizeski also, by the amount of racing that he does, is a bit of a cut above many of them. but he's the man that finishes third. So 3 different brands. You've got Mercedes, Porsche and Ferrari in the top 3 places. Down the pit road comes the winning Mercedes, the second place Porsche and the third placed Ferrari. AKA ASP, Mentos Racing and Kessel Racing, the 3 teams represented across the podium. And for AF Corsa, Martin Lanting gives a class win in the Iron Cup. So the car's being marshalled towards Parc Fermé. There is Daniele Perfetti, who slots into place. Egidio Perfetti arrives now, and had he not had to start on the 4th row of the grid, who knows. But it also took Egidio a bit longer to get through the traffic at the start of the race than it did Michael Bronizeski. I know in the end that Egidio Perfetti got the better result, but it just seemed to take him longer to really get himself into the groove. So there, the drivers out of the cars, and the Perfetti brothers embrace. They never actually got together to have a proper battle on track, but they were always mindful of who was where, and chuppa chups all round. So, ever the entrepreneur, Daniele Perfetti carries them in his pocket. Well, you never know if you're going to end up stranded on the track, do you, and need refreshment. So, Chupa Chups defeats Mentos, as the drivers then will, as I say, make their way up to the podium. There's Egidio Perfetti, Steve Earle's Ferrari in the background, Martin Lanting's Ferrari number 48 there in Parc Fermé. So, another good result for Kessel Racing. Egidio Perfetti all smiles with his second place, and now being ushered up towards the podium. Needs the regulation Pirelli cap on. And the Porsche, which has done sterling service this weekend, the quickest car in qualifying, but that drive-through penalty in the first race putting the rest of Egidio Perfetti's weekend really on the back foot, I'm afraid. So Daniele, I think, is being rounded up for an interview. He wants his brother with him as well, but let's hear from the pair of them. Daniele wins, Egidio is second. The Perfettis lock out the top 2 at Paul Ricard, and our reporter Dakota Jane is with them.
Daniele, that was mega race.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for the lollipop. It's really you who deserves it.
So yeah, good race. Thank you, Egidio, for not catching me.
You were looking very fast out there.
Yeah.
But it was just not quite enough to have your brother.
I think it was an excellent race. I think it took us a little while to get through some of the traffic. Then I was on the pace. But yeah, he did a great job at the beginning. He pulled away, and well done.
You both are looking very fast out there. Big congratulations to the both of you.
Thank you. Well, I just want to say that if it wasn't for the drive-through this morning, he'd probably be in P1, so...
No. That's family. Yeah. Come again next time then.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So the Perfetti brothers embraced, Daniele acknowledging that Egidio perhaps had better pace, and were it not for that drive-through in the first race, and still think he was a little bit hard done by, in as much as Bronizeski did rather dive bomb him, left him with little option, then it might have been a different result. But in the end, Daniele defeats Egidio, 1.9 seconds between the Perfettis. Michael Bronizeski third, Daniel Voigt fourth ahead of coach McKenzie, Maurice Ricci sixth from Martin Lanting, Nico van Dierendonk is eighth, Mark Soord ninth, and Steve Earle 10th. 11th after a spin, Jean-Michel Bart, and then 12th, Jan Brunstedt in the Audi. 13th place goes the way of Alexis de Bernardi's Ferrari. That, remember, had a drive-through after overtaking off the track, in other words, going behind the track limits to gain a pass. 14th, Jean-Paul Buffin, 15th, Pierre Hershey. Claude Gosselin has been a bit anonymous this weekend, but he fended off Louis-Philippe Cernan. Christoph Ulrich we saw have a couple of spins. William de Puller was 19th. And then senior Perfetti Augusto was 20th, ahead of Klaus-Dieter Frers, Leon Price, Martin Grab after a spin, and Gary Konlikov rounding out the 24 finishers. The retirements we had accounted for pretty much, with Feligioni by the side of the track. Gilles Lallemont retired into the pit lane, and so now the drivers make their way up towards the podium. And whilst the drivers are being rounded up, then let's have a quick look at some of the best bits of the main race here at Paul Ricard. From the front of the grid, it was Mercedes new and old on the front. Daniele Perfetti, though, was out-dragged by Daniel Voigt, who went round the outside to gain the advantage into turn one. It was all a bit tight. They wriggled their way through the first sequence of corners, but Daniele Perfetti made the move down at turn three, got the race lead, whilst up into fifth after only 3 corners, Michael Broniszewski was a man on a mission in his Ferrari. Broniszewski kept picking off people as he worked his way up the order. Battles raged on all the way through the field. Pierre Hershey's BMW Z4 in the thick of it. He had Maurice Ricci for company as they blasted back onto the Mistral straight. But Broniszewski was working his way up the order. He got as far as second place, but then attention turned to Egidio Perfetti in the white Porsche because he was lapping quicker than the Ferrari. He was getting closer and closer and eventually made the move up the inside down towards the chicane Nord. From that point on, the Mercedes started to fall away. Martin Lanting had been busy battling with coach McKenzie in the Lamborghini, but that will be a place change, and then eventually Lanting started to fall away. Alexis de Bernardi got past Marc Sword, worked his way into contention as out on track through the traffic went Egidio Perfetti. He put himself onto terms with the Ferrari, made his move and took second place away. That left him to chase his brother, but the gap was just that little bit too great. And so Daniele Perfetti coasted towards the line to make sure of a family 1-2. Daniele Perfetti beats Egidio Perfetti in the main race here in the Blancpain GT Sports Club at Paul Ricard. So that's how we got a result. The result is now there in human form on the podium, because for third place there is Michael Broniszewski. Second place, Egidio Perfetti onto the podium, and brother Daniele will go to the top step. So Daniele Perfetti, the race winner, a delighted man, a happy family as well. Hopefully father is down there somewhere to cheer for his 2 boys that are first and second in France. So the national anthem for winning driver Daniele Perfetti, and he in a moment will make his way to the press conference post-race. But before that, there are trophies to be presented, and for third and for second, the trophies go to, for Ferrari, Michael Broniszewski, for Porsche, Egidio Perfetti, and then race winner Daniele Perfetti takes the trophy, and a win, a second of the day for Mercedes. And Michael Broniszewski receives the aeroplane trophy and can celebrate a very successful weekend in France. A podium finish in this and a class win in the Blancpain GT Series 6-hour race yesterday evening. So the winning drivers on the podium and celebrations about to begin, although first there is some money to go the way of the race winner as well, Daniele Perfetti. Next stop for the Blancpain GT Sports Club is Spa-Francorchamps at the end of July. We'll see you there. From here at Paul Ricard, from David Addison. Bye-bye.